Franklin County Commissioners meeting, February 20th, 2019.
Good morning. We are here today for where we needed to call a special meeting. We had all three of the commissioners yesterday involved in the emergency management drill. So it put us a day back. So we have all three commissioners. We have Keith, our administrator, and Karen, our clerk, and we do have an audience. And if you would stand and pledge for the pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is a approval of the minutes for January 8th. Any additions, corrections, deletions? If not, I'll sign them as read. We'll move on to public hearing. Keith, is Steve going to help you, or you?
I think I can handle this. I hope.
Okay.
Depending on the questions from the board.
$250,000 from the Franklin County Reserve Fund for improvements and repairs needed in jail facility.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you might remember that last year we allocated up to $400,000 from our Franklin County Reserve Fund to assist with the remodeling and repair work needed in the jail facility. I was not aware of it at the time, at the end of the year, that allocation did not automatically roll over to the new year. So the purpose of doing it in a public hearing today is to reauthorize the rest of the funds. We're not asking for any increase at this point. They spent like $150,000 of that $400,000 that we had allocated, and so the $250,000 is just basically a reauthorization of that money for the new year.
Yeah. And that's to clean up some of the facility because of the lawsuit.
Yes, exactly. And I would just commend the jail staff, Commander Soltemeyer, for the work that they've done. We recently had the litigation manager, court monitor, that's the word I was looking for, the monitor, come and do a review. We haven't received his final written report yet. Anticipate that shortly, but I would just indicate that they have done a lot of work with not very much resources to meet the requirements of the litigation. We're optimistic that the judge will allow us to continue to move forward.
Okay. I think we have to add the facility department in with those.
Certainly. Yeah, it's been a joint effort of a lot of folks. My microphone's cutting out. Joint effort of a lot of folks to make that happen, but the leadership of the facilities and sheriff's office both have been very good to work with to get this done.
All right. With that, we'll open the public hearing and ask for any discussion on pros or cons on the $250,000. Hearing none, we close the public hearing, and we have a resolution, obviously, that is 2019-061.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a resolution. I was hoping we might have a little board discussion before we move to that.
Sure.
Since it is a public hearing and the primary purpose today is to make sure the public is informed of what we're doing, perhaps, Keith, you could give us a little bit more on where these funds are going to be used. You've referenced the compliance with the federal suit, which, of course, we are obligated to do, but over the past year or so, there's been substantial criticism about whether or not funds are being used to refurbish an inadequate new jail. And in fact, a lot of public discussion about us spending more money on the new jail when in fact I think it was all focused on the old jail, and that distinction is important, and this seems like an appropriate time to get that on the record.
Certainly. These funds are primarily going to refurbishment of the old part of the jail. I think you've all toured it or seen the ceiling tiles that were old and had some black dirt in them that didn't meet air quality standards. Work on the pods themselves that required new paint that had been peeling, work on windows that had been blackened that needed to be open for natural light to come through, a number of things that had been noted in the litigation to improve the living quality of the pods that were in existence in the old jail. Number of improvements around the old master control center that it could be now better utilized. And one of the most important things that we're focused on is the intake area at the front of the jail, better classification of inmates when they come in, identification of those with medical issues, more space for the females that are coming into the facility. We've seen an increase in the number of female inmates. So, yeah, the bulk of this money is going towards improvements in the old part of the facility.
As did the funds last year.
Certainly, yes.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear what it was for last year and what it's for this year.
So, question, Keith, then, we're waiting for this report to come back on where we stand on the new jail.
Well, it's actually both, the new and the old. There were requirements in the settlement agreement that required us to make some changes both to the old part of the jail as well as the new.
Okay.
And
we have made some improvements to the new part of the jail.
Yes,
I toured with Sheriff Raymond.
Yes.
They have welded in the doors for handcuffing the prisoners before they come out of their cell, and they've done a lot of work there too, because he pointed it all out when I toured the jail with him.
Yeah. Initially, as you identified, some of the doors to the cells did not have cuff ports in them, and those had to be installed. The locks that had been put in some of those doors were substandard and needed to be replaced and upgraded. So it's a combination of both in terms of the big picture. In terms of these reserve funds, that's primarily focused on the old part of the jail.
And I noticed here, as in this, it says that we used $153,398 was spent last year, leaving $246,602, but the resolution's for $250,000. Are we just going to add the little bit to get it up to $250,000 then, or are we just rounding this off?
That's just kind of a rounding number. Yeah.
Okay. And when do you expect this report to be back to where we stand on this new jail?
Looking at the sheriff, I think we're expected to be in front of the judge next month.
Well, the compliance report will be completed and sent to the judge with a copy to us. And that's supposed to be done by February is the anticipated date. So it's already late. That report was supposed to be done in December, but because of circumstances, where it's at. I think it's important for the public to understand that this is just one piece of the compliance issues that exist with the federal court with the decree that's taken place. So the actual facilities upgrades are, I don't want to use the word mandated, but they're suggested that we bring all of our facilities into what's called PREA compliance. And what we're attempting to, that's what we're attempting to do now, is bring the facilities themselves into 21st century modern compliance for jail standards, basically. Some of the money that was used last year was, most of the bulk of this money was used in the old section of the jail, where we were actually bringing up HOG, which are entire cell blocks. Freshening them up is probably the best word, making sure that they're stenciled correctly with numbers, et cetera, and trying to bring them up to compliance to keep us out of litigation. In the old section, if you recall, we shut down work release. So in other words, we're not in the work release business anymore, and we're slowly converting those sections to a female intake that is compliant and acceptable when it's done, along with some medical and mental health facilities back in it's right off our filter. So it's just a process trying to bring in compliance and get by. It is not the fix all. But hopefully it won't be in my time. I bet probably a decade from now we'll be having to address this whole jail issue in some other form. Hopefully this is a good start to fix it and head in the right direction.
I think the only thing I'd add to that, Sheriff, is that the compliance issue is, as you said, holistic. It's the whole program, the people, the equipment, the policies, the procedures, and I know you've done a ton of work in getting policies and procedures up to date, which was a real sticking point. I just want to be clear, my comments about new versus old were just where we had spent the money. Anything that we're using, whether it's the new jail or the old, has got to be compliant, right?
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of Resolution 2019-061 as presented.
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That'll take us on to Carly, we got a request to convert a correction deputy position. Morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request for your consideration is for the conversion of a corrections deputy position to a corrections lieutenant position. The sheriff had requested the addition of 2 lieutenants positions during the 2019 budget process. The vision for this position was to be a large commander position and another level of leadership that could be present in the facility when the commander and the captain are not there, and really facilitate communications of these enhanced policies, procedures from the command staff to the line staff in the jail. Through the course of the 2019 budget, the sheriff was approved to add 1 lieutenant position to the jail. And through those discussions, recognizing that the mission of the position can't really be fulfilled with only 1 FTE, the sheriff was encouraged to come and ask to get that 2nd lieutenant by the conversion of an existing corrections deputy position, so not adding an FTE but upgrading an FTE. One consideration in that is when the position was requested during the budget process and the compensation level requested, the position and the duties hadn't been really fully fleshed out, and now that we've had an opportunity to get the details of the duties put together, the appropriate compensation level that has been determined for that position is slightly lower than what had been budgeted for that additional FTE. So ultimately, the total impact to convert this position from a deputy position to that 2nd lieutenant position, the total annual impact is just over $34,000, but it actually will result in a savings of almost $12,000 in the current year budget due to not having filled either of those vacancies yet, and that kind of over budgeting of where the salary has landed.
So the savings accrues only if the FTE is filled, right? So you're describing it as a savings, and it sounded a little bit like you plan to spend $1 million, but you end up only spending $800,000, so you call it a savings when it's really an $800,000 expense. That's just speaking to the language.
Right. It's a $34,000 expense, but it's still below what was budgeted for corrections for 2019.
Right.
Yes.
And oftentimes we budget for positions that don't get filled or don't get expended.
Sure.
Okay. So, those numbers are all fully loaded, right?
Those are fully loaded. Salaries and benefits.
Carly, is this some more of the getting in line with the process that we're supposed to be in line with the federal government, having lieutenants there on duty to oversee the jail? Sheriff Raymond would probably be able to answer this best. Is this the reason we're doing this, is being compliant?
No, it's actually, well, help with compliance, but what it's gonna help with is avoiding future lawsuits, because they're putting a line of mid-management that's actually on the floor, working in the jail, oversight of all the operations, that's going to hopefully be there at critical points and times to make sound administrative decisions for implementation within the jail facility, such as, let's see, we can use intake and classification, where we're putting inmates and all those type of things. They'll take over those duties. They will be an administrative police, or at least one of them will be on duty on the weekends, which is usually voided in the administrative oversight. So they're basically going to act as administrators and first line supervisors. They'll pick up kind of both of those roles within the facility and just be there at those key times for the operations of the facility, so we can make sure things are following through correct.
Will there be any required training for these individuals to make that lieutenant position, or are they already there with their?
Oh, yeah, we'll eventually send them off to mid-management, a bunch of other trainings that come with that rank and that position.
Okay.
But they're trained and ready to go. The applicants that are currently taking the test for the position, they're all from within the facility. Some of them have more advanced training than others. But yeah, we'll make that work.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get them trained up and get them certified in the right position.
So Carly, I think my interest is mostly in the structure here. I've supported these lieutenant positions from the start, as I recall, and I don't have a problem with this one, but I want to be comfortable with how this action meshes with three things. One, any bargaining unit implications. Two is changes in the pay matrix that we've already identified with wage studies and whether or not that affects this position or the one it's replacing. And the third is setting it on a percentage compression over another position as opposed to having it on the wage chart. So if you could just kind of speak to those three.
It is a non-bargaining position at this time. We have a bargaining unit that encompasses the corrections deputies, corporals, and sergeants. This position, it's a civil service classified position, but at this time it's a non-bargaining position, but it kind of, for lack of a better word, it lives somewhere between the sheriff's unclassified appointed command staff and these bargaining corrections positions.
And so the implication that I was sort of alluding to, I didn't want to lead the answer, we're taking a position that likely would have been a bargaining unit and putting it into a managerial role that likely isn't bargaining. That's not something that the union's going to have an issue with, is it?
No.
Okay. All right.
Like I said, it's non-bargaining at this time.
Right. I understand the other side of the equation.
Yeah.
They may not have a concern because they may see an opportunity to add it later. So, and with respect to the wage tables and the salary review that you've done, that didn't include these positions.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can push that one aside. I think the other one I can live with. I just, as you know, sensitive to making sure that we're not taking discrete actions in certain areas that have consequences or disadvantage other positions in our salary matrix. And so when we're doing this on a compression basis, 10% over another position, when you change one, we create that domino effect of increasing compensation on several. So I think I saw.
This is consistent with how compensation is set throughout the sheriff's office.
Right.
The positions within the bargaining unit are set on a compression basis. The corporals are, I don't know, remember off the top of my head, are a certain percentage over the deputies, sergeants, on both the law enforcement and the corrections side, and with the command staff. So this is consistent with how we set compensation across the law enforcement.
And we've only done that in the law enforcement side, right?
Correct.
And You said something there is interesting, that the compression approach is in the command staff as well. I guess that's a detail that slipped my memory. I knew it was in the bargaining side, but it extends through the entire organization. So when we bargain with the union for the non-bargaining Sheriff's Department employees to get a pay increase, whether we ever gets mentioned or not, the entire senior staff's going to get an increase as well. Okay. Okay.
Any further questions, comments?
Well, Mr. Chairman, happy to move for approval of Resolution 2019-062 as presented.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carly, you're still up.
So the next request for the board's consideration is the implementation of the compensation study recommendations for the non-bargaining employees. The Rita head certainly has a great amount of detail into kind of the background and history up until this point. But essentially this request today is to implement the comp study for non-bargaining consistent with the phased-in implementation that we've been working with on to phase in the entire comp study by the end of 2019, utilizing the funds that the board set aside in contingency during the budget process.
Discussion? I already said there's lots of moving pieces in that.
There are a lot of moving parts to it, and it can be really confusing and overwhelming to look at. And I think, you know, a big piece of that is the phased-in approach added a lot of complexity to this, because there were a lot of moving parts if we were doing it all in one shot. But in order to allow us to accomplish this in 2019, we had to phase it in, you know, to be able to do it within the budgeted funds that the board has set aside. There's grade movement, there's salary matrix movement. I think one of the key things is that you have to look at it holistically, and I've had a lot of conversations over the last couple days, you know, with individuals. How does this affect me? And my staff is perfectly willing to talk through that with people, because you have to look at kind of a specific position at every phase in the process. Some positions, you know, see change at multiple phases along the way, and it incrementally gets them where they need to be. But I simplified it as best as I can, but it's incredibly complex. But I think the key is this was a very collaborative process in partnership with department heads and elected officials at every phase. They were able to review it, and we had a lot of interaction, and the employees were able to provide input as to their job duties along the way. And this is ultimately that culmination of that almost couple of years worth of work.
Yeah, like Carly says, we after 2 years ago to start looking into this, and this is what it's come to at this point.
Carly, when you did your wage studies, I know that you were careful to use like or reasonably comparable counties. We're not comparing our wage structure to King County. I just want to go through a few points. One, because we have the benefit, Commissioner Cook and I especially, over having these discussions over the last couple of years. Not everybody in the public necessarily has had that benefit. So there's a few sort of baseline things I want to get clear. One is that we're careful to use comparable counties. Two is that personnel costs are really the largest component of government, which is understandable. It's also a little concerning, because it also means that we're a relatively big government, and not really a fan of big government and big costs, but that aside, it takes a certain number of people to fulfill our statutory obligations, and I get that. When you went about setting these wages, as I recall, your target was not to put us in the top third or the bottom third, but to put us in the middle third.
Yes.
Okay, in terms of salary that comparable positions in comparable counties were getting. We talked specifically about certain positions that were currently, and I think that's a really key word, currently in high demand and hard to fill. Because a certain number of years ago, it wasn't all that hard to get a public works director or planning director or some other position, and nowadays they're a little more scarce than normal. We talked about being careful not to adjust wages in the wage scale for those positions, but rather look to other tools and other compensation avenues for when it's difficult to find and retain people in those specialty areas. And this reflects that thinking as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And the total cost, if you were to bottom line this, to the taxpayers of Franklin County in 2019 would be what?
In 2019, it's just under 180,000 for current expense.
Okay, which adds up to about $1.75 per every person in the county for the year. And for 2020, roughly similar.
Slightly more than that
Yeah.
for a couple of months.
About over 400,000 for 2020.
Okay. And then for 2021?
I don't have.
You're not out
I
there?
don't have-
Okay.
don't have that
So
far out.
the point that I'm getting to is that when we start down this path, and we do for a certain number of positions, and it almost obligates us to do for the next group, right?
Well, this is for the non-bargaining position, so this is just the non-bars.
Right.
We have agreements for all of the county positions for the full implementation, which for the 2019 cost for that is about $620,000,
Okay.
including my county.
But those are not all bargaining unit, right, for 2020? You saying there's no non-bargs in the 2020?
The annual impact that I gave you, the 400,000,
Right.
is non-barg only.
Oh, okay. All right. And the 600 number, is that a cumulative number from this year and next? What's that?
600 is this year.
Okay. I
All
got
of
it.
the bargaining units, all full implementation of
All
comp,
right.
including,
So your 200 number, you're isolating what isn't already committed in bargaining units, 180,000.
right, the 200 number is for this request today.
Okay. So the action today binds us to the 180 roughly. Everything else that follows this is already committed in bargaining?
Yes, or will be coming to you. Some have, we're kind of in the middle of.
So probably more accurate to say it's not actually committed, it's anticipated that our
Yes.
bargaining negotiations are going to take us there.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Further, Commissioner?
Yeah, under this phase one, I don't see anything in here for our bilingual person in
The bilingual coordinator
Position,
position is
yeah.
a bargaining unit position,
Is
so
she-
it is not included in this request. That's in the courthouse bargaining unit.
okay. I see we're taking our position out there at track. That's phase two, or is there one, finance manager at track goes from a 15 to a 19?
It goes from a T15, so there's a separate salary matrix for the track that we're eliminating in the process. So we're going from 3 matrices to 2. The other track matrix has been in existence since the Hay study, and so we're looking to streamline that. But the range for that position has been identified that a 19 is appropriate.
talking with the track manager, he doesn't see the importance of this position. And I was just curious of why we're elevating it to a 19 when he doesn't really see the importance of this position out there.
Well, I know that Tom he's mentioned to me some potential structuring things. I worked with Tom on this when this recommendation came, based on the job duties being executed by that position today. This is the appropriate compensation for that set of job duties.
What's a T15 mean? What's T stand for?
It's the track matrix. That's what that grade is called, is T15. That's how it's the nomenclature of it.
And Carla, approximate dollar difference between a T15 and a standard 19 in the county? I don't need a hard number, just is it level? Is it a modest increase?
It's a modest increase.
Okay. And given the history of audits at track, I think having professional financial oversight is not just a good idea, it's essential. But like Tom, I agree that there are multiple ways that we can accomplish that. We can have in-house financial people. We can outsource it. There's a number of options to do that. The point I'm driving to is that this approval today would keep the current finance process in place with a modest increase, but does nothing to hinder our options going forward if we were to decide that that was a position that we wanted to convert to an outside contract. So I think that sort of addresses those concerns.
Which would be the same with any position on this.
And I appreciate the distinction. I'm not isolating one and trying to signal that that's the intent of the plan.
Contract HR out tomorrow if you felt the need.
Not going to touch that one. And so if you were to nail this down to one or two or three bullets, I'm guessing, and I'm just going to, instead of playing, guessing game, I'll just tell you what I think they would be, and correct me if I get them wrong. One is that we have an obligation to compensate our employees fairly in the marketplace. Two, if we don't do that, someone else will. And three, like anything else, you get what you pay for. I guess there's a fourth, which is we're currently in the bottom third compared to other comparable counties in how we compensate.
I would agree with that.
Any of those bullet points, any issue with any of those?
No, I don't disagree with any of those statements.
I'm just trying to capture it for people that don't have the benefit of enjoying all this reading and the history. So, okay. All right. So, Mr. Chairman, if there's no other discussion, I move for approval of Resolution 2019-063 as presented.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Carly. This is our point in the agenda for public comment, our first of two opportunities.
Actually, I just had a quick question that was relevant to that discussion. I had several of my staff ask me, I know during that 2-year process we started off with a consultant, and when I was asked, what was the status of that consultant and why we changed off of it, I wasn't able to give a thorough answer, so I'm hoping somebody can give me some color on that.
Was that necessarily a consultant or just some additional help?
We did contract out with additional help at the beginning of the process in 2017, I believe, using HR budgeted funds to do that at the end of that year. Those budgeted funds ran out, and so we did the remaining of that work in-house.
Is that so? You're
That's the answer. I was under the impression that was in order for the independence, like the Hayes study, when they did the Hayes study, it was independent, and there's always, internal competition, and there's, relationships internally, and, my understanding, and I didn't, there wasn't a whole lot of communication, and I understand how budgeting goes, but I remember it was like 50,000, and I guess the question was, that ran up to a certain point, and then it stopped, and then the rest of it was completed in-house, and I didn't know, so then the answer was that was never created for the purposes of independence, it was for extra work, or I didn't understand where that disconnect was, so, but if that's the answer, then, that's what I'll tell my staff, so.
Further comments? Kevin?
Good morning. Kevin Heinen, Mesa area farmer. Morning, Commissioners. In here this morning to talk a little bit about the road dilemmas we're having out there. Still, I think even roads out there today still are impassable by the means of a two-wheel drive or a regular car, four-wheel drive. I've never seen this in the past. We only get these things to happen once every 10 years. We get these 50-mile-an-hour winds, blowing roads shut, and I've never seen it this slow a process. It's terrible. There have been two other gentlemen came here. Case Vandermeulen has a sizable dairy east of Mesa. He's been having issues. I think he just got it bladed out here just in the last day or so. He couldn't be here today because he had other things going on. Blake Kelzer, another gentleman, he's hauling hay right now because he just finally got into his stacks. He was able to get into his own stacks, but the roads were so not plowed. So, either we need to go in and hire contractors, which a lot of these contractors are doing nothing right now. Set a block of roads up. Hey, what will you do it by the hour? I want a road blade. Then our county guys do the main roads. I don't know how many, one question I'd like to be answered, how many plows and graders do we have?
Matt, you want to come on up? Yeah, I think we're going to need your.
Morning, Matt.
Morning. As the board knows, the county is split up into two distinct areas. The north part of the county is what we call the Connell District. The south part is the Pasco District. At each end, we have 4 dump trucks with the snow plows on them. We also have, I believe, 7 motor graders, and we have a loader at each end, plus we rented 2 more loaders. So that right there kind of gives you the...
So how much personnel do you have to run those?
At each end, we have it kind of depends depending on where we are staffing wise, but typically we try to run 9, including the supervisor in the north part of the county and 9 in the south. And that includes the supervisor, and in both cases, those supervisors have actually been out in loaders and working, which is not very typical under normal circumstances.
So some of the things I've been seeing is, I think we've got some inexperience out there on the roads. I don't know how many times, I'm sure you can probably tell me, how many times snow trucks were in the ditch. I know area farmers were out pulling them out. Yeah. We did one. We did a couple, and that's going to happen. We understand that, we're there to help. But, I think we need to really look at this hard. And I think there's I'm going to blame it, there's some mismanagement. I think we got some employees out there. I've had Scott Davis, and I've seen it from other people. Here you got a snowplow. This was on Sunday afternoon, Monday it was. Snowplow going down the road with the blade up. Why is the blade up? The other complaints I'm hearing, the snow blade's 4 inches off the ground. That tells me management. Maybe you're going to tell me they're rough roads. We have the same roads we had 20, 30, 40 years ago. And I'm just going, is there some inexperience out there that management, that's your guys' job, making sure those guys know how to run it. I know this only happens 1 in 10 years, but we got to be ready for it. It's just,
Well, let me answer the first one. It's kind of one of the main points about being off the ground. No department that I'm aware of, including the DOT, runs their plows on the ground. Usually they have skid plates, we have wheels, there's other implements that keep it off the ground anywhere from 2 to 4 inches. How the DOT is able to get clear highways is because people travel on those highways, and that's what really breaks up the snow. But initially what you're trying to get down to is about 2 inches of the ground, and then as it gets broken up, then you try to kick off the rest. So the DOT, like I-182, that's what everybody hopes to see, is clear highways like that. But I will tell you, even on 240, the bypass, that was not clear for a very long time because Hanford was shut down. And because nobody was traveling on that road, that absolutely was not a clear highway. So as far as being up, our snow plows can't go through the drifts like we've seen. 50-mile-an-hour winds, especially in the north part of the county, where we kind of have a little bit more open ground. We don't have the canals and stuff like that to kind of create the snow fences. They can't go through that, so there might be times where they are going through those areas where maybe they've already gotten down and created one lane of traffic, and then we try to come back as we can with the actual, and we know we've had some great help out there from our friends, residents out in the county that do have loaders trying to get those drifts moved out of the way.
so is one other thing money is, are we shorthanded? Are we short on equipment? Do we need a V-plow when we run into instances like this to plow through? The side blades can blade it more. Have you talked to people out of Montana that deal with this all the time? Public works people there, I don't know. I'm asking for, because it just doesn't look like it's going smooth.
It is one of those things, like, this isn't the worst snow event, I believe, that we've gotten. What's hurt us this year in this county is, and not just our county, other counties, Benton County has closed many roads. We haven't purposely closed roads. We attempted to get out there and at least get one lane open so that people could get through, as opposed to closing multiple roads. So this has kind of hit every county, including the state, pretty hard with the 50-mile-an-hour winds that we saw here in the main event. And then it blew in again. We had some more blowing wind on Friday. Right. Kind of closed some back up.
So how many miles of road do you have to maintain major roads?
Well, total roads is
Miles, I want.
total miles is just shy of 1,000 miles, so that's about 2,000 lane miles.
Of major roads?
No, major roads is about a third of that.
Third of that. So if I was to do a little arithmetic with 8 or 9 machines to do 300 miles, I wouldn't think it'd take very long.
Well,
You see what I'm getting at? I'm
Yeah.
taking your manpower. The other thing I'm going to ask too is, I know the commissioners cut money, from what I understand, and I don't know this for a fact, cut money out of your road deal. So is that affecting some of your stuff too?
like I said, I don't use that as an excuse. What I will tell you is that, certainly with the staff that we have, just looking even from a payroll standpoint, we've seen an increase to our payroll by over $30,000 just in the last payroll period, which is a 2-week period. So that's a huge increase. Certainly, we think we look at actually getting contractors on board, but that, for us to then employ contractors, we're not looking at 4 or 5-digit numbers. We're looking at 6-digit numbers, which is certainly a huge impact to the county road budget for an event. And we've seen winters in here, not necessarily here, but in other parts of our country, where snow events have bankrupted cities and counties and other areas. And certainly, if we struck, those are decisions that certainly
that with direction of the board, we can make that, like I said, those are going to be 6-digit numbers when we start employing contractors to go out and assist in these areas. So certainly, budget is, of course, a huge
So
part.
I'm sitting here, you're taking $30,000. If you took $30,000, just kept your help on your normal hours, and you took $30,000 divided by 100, you could hire a whole lot of road grader hours from a contractor that's not doing anything and not have that every year, only in your emergency times. Another thing that's going on too that I have questions, you have all these rumor mills happening, is you have people going, the shop came in on a Sunday, double overtime day, and the shop guys are getting paid. That's another question I had. This is a rumor running around, which I think came from a pretty good source. I'm going, why is the shop guys? Is it one guy, or is it the whole shop that came in? And why? Getting paid on a day, double overtime. Did equipment need to be fixed? I can understand it then, if that's what you're going to tell me. But on a Sunday, I'm kind of going, could that not have, 2 guys came out of 4? So a lot of questions I'm asking.
We certainly didn't run our full shop on those off days, and certainly
Out of how many did you run that are the full shop?
we have 3 mechanics, 1 shop assistant, and then of course our parts guy our parts and service tech, no overtime, our supervisor, and in those areas, in lieu of overtime, certainly we look at, if they choose to, which they typically do, we look at what we call compensatory time, where we're not paying them the overtime.
So as you can see, I'm trying to battle for you for maybe more money, and why that maybe you got cut back on money, but yet I'm wanting you to spend it wisely, not having guys come in on double overtime days, Sunday or whatever, unless they're needed. Absolutely. So that's just some of the rumor mill. The other thing I think the commissioners need to really look at, and we've been talking about this down the road, Glade Road and Taylor Flats. Even I don't use it that much, but that road needs to be widened at some point. You guys either need to go out and get a bond to stretch it over years or whatever, but Glade and Taylor Flats need to be widened.
Correct.
It's just a safety hazard. It's a lot of things. And the other thing, this bridge being down as long as it's been down is a bunch of malarkey on Taylor Flats. I haven't had to deal with it, but I think, Clint, you were telling me it's supposed to be down for 5 months?
Yeah, till May. And that's going to put a big stress on our community out there as far as the equipment is. When this breaks, you're going to see farm equipment running up and down Glade Road. It's going to be a definite
it's going to
hazard.
be a safety hazard.
Yes, it is.
So that's all I had to say. Not just me. There's a lot of other guys that would like to have been here today that wanted to voice this opinion, and I think Butch is going to get up and thank you.
Appreciate it.
And Kevin, I have suggested that maybe we look into, we got a volunteer fire department, we got a volunteer EMTs, and there's no reason why the farmers, you already heard, he's got 9 people at each station. There's only 4 on duty at a time, correct? Because you have to have the other 4 for the night shift if they're plowing roads, correct?
No, I mean, this time around, we didn't run 24/7. Our guys were working and trying to get things open and then getting out, usually anywhere about 4 to 5 a.m. every morning. So we were just sending them home. It's very difficult to kind of break up into shifts into this because of the amount of people we have, because it's one of those things where you do need kind of all your trucks going with the snow plows. You do need your motor graders going, and you do need your loaders. And a lot of times they're working in conjunction with each other, where, the goal is to try to have a snow plow going up and down the road about three times minimum, and then having a motor grader following behind it to really, that's the piece of equipment that can get down really close to the surface of the road without causing much damage on paved and gravel roads. So that's usually our goal, but unfortunately, when we have an event like this where we just had, we just still have a lot of roads right now that got blown in on Friday over the weekend that we got cleared, and then they started blowing in. We had to close, I think, North Walt Loop on top of the hill to the guardrail up there, pardon me, I'm trying not to cough while I'm up here as well. I'm struggling with a little bit of a cold here, but the guardrail up on there, it acted as a snow fence, and as the snow was blowing across the fields there, it hit the guardrail and started to stack up, and it just got to be so bad, so we closed that so that we could get up there with a loader and try to get that clear. So the north part of our county is definitely was hit the hardest from the snow drifts, and the south part, we still got a lot of work to do.
And that's one of the real deals that was out there too, is that all the lanes were down in the city, Franklin County here too, where they kind of thought that was hard to believe.
Yeah.
But that's how rumors get started when you get into instances like that.
Matt, now is Bellevue also closed?
Bellevue, over the weekend, we had a blowout. Is that not on? Thank you. We had a blowout at the bridge on both sides where the pavement just completely blew apart.
Okay.
And so that just is kind of creating another issue that we're going to have to deal with and get that fixed. And it's like we always say, the worst thing for your roads is getting water into the
Three worst things for road: water on it, water beside it, and water under it.
Yeah.
So Matt, real quick, are there contractors available if the board provided the funds? I'm going to imagine an awful lot of folks are looking for additional help. So.
Yeah, I mean, certainly contractors, most of the big contractors like that we'd be talking about don't typically aren't outfitted with their dump trucks, but having plows on them. But certainly they have the motor graders and they have the loaders, and certainly that is certainly something we were thinking about. But just unfortunately right now, certainly we're looking at some potential cash flow crises in the county road fund right now.
So I know the numbers, Matt, just as you do.
Yeah.
And when I got here about, I don't know, however many years ago, we had $40,000 in total cash hard reserves for the county. It was a joke. Money was being borrowed from local banks to make payroll until tax collections got done. And since then, we've spent a decade very slowly, very carefully building up a contingency reserve that's got a fence around it. It's outside of our budget, and it's a true emergency kind of fund. We've tapped into it a number of times, funding for improvements in the old jail because we're facing a federal lawsuit, any number of things. I also know that the cost of graders and equipment is high, and that buying an extra 20% capacity for a once-in-a-decade event doesn't make sense either. So it seems like a reasonable response is maybe for you to have one of your folks check and see what the availability is of contractors, get us some real numbers on what that would cost, and then we look to that contingency or that reserve fund that we created for exactly this kind of thing that's outside of our normal budget due to extenuating circumstances, in this case unusual weather, and we use that fund for the kinds of things that it was intended. And what's missing in the equation, I think, is us knowing if that kind of equipment and talent, right, is available. Yeah. And what it would cost. And equipped with those two things, I don't have any problem with following up on Mr. Heine's suggestion, which I think is a good one, which is don't go buy more people and equipment, contract out for those peak demand periods, and maybe put those people on roads where we have potentially less risk and liability should something happen.
Yeah.
And then dedicate your folks to the areas that require that level of skill and experience.
So Matt, of the equipment we have, how many pieces are running every day and how many pieces are sitting?
It really depends on the amount of people that show up. We had 3 people that actually fell down on the ice last week, so we had 3 people that were out. So it really depends on on who is able to show up.
So
and
if
work.
everybody was there working, how many pieces of equipment would be running and how many would be sitting due to operators?
18.
18 pieces of equipment running?
Yeah.
How many pieces of equipment would be sitting because there was no operator on it?
If we're running at full capacity, there might be a few motor graders that might be sitting.
And this was my suggestion for a volunteer force, because these are farmers.
Yeah.
We got guys out there that are running road graders. They have them on their farms. We have capable operators out there, and it'd be no expense to the county if we offered up and had the training for a volunteer force for this situation, and let these guys get on machines and keep those guys quit working the hours to where they get fatigued and things happen that we don't want to happen. Mistakes. Because that's what's happening. These guys, I heard there's cots down there, they're sleeping on the cots, they're getting a couple hours, they're back up and running, and I'm thinking, this is when a disaster is going to happen, because you're going to have a fatigued operator, and there will be a collision, or something's going to happen, and it's going to be a lawsuit for the county. These farmers, I have got numerous requests. Do they need help? I'm willing to help. And I think we look to our community to help us out of these situations instead of adding to an increased cost to the taxpayers. I think we have people out there that are qualified operators that can do the task as well, if not better, than the operators for the county.
Can I offer just a numerator there while you guys are having this discussion? All of those operators on those graders and stuff, they're under a union, all those type of things. You might want to be careful that you didn't start some other type of legal action. Or you can start stepping on their work and their rights to that work and all those type of things. There have to be some sort of agreement.
Oh, I'm sure there would be. You're exactly right, Sheriff. There would have to be an agreement, but I'm telling you right now, commerce is not created out there, and taxes are not paid unless the farmers can get their products to market. We have hay out there, and we've got dairies that need the hay right now, and we're not able to move it because we can't get the trucks up and down the road. There's potato trucks running. There's lots of commerce that still has to happen in this weather, and it's not happening.
You still have parking units that you have to deal with.
Yep.
Butch? Hey, gentlemen, Butch Curtis is my name, and I farm in the northern part of Franklin County also. And I understand, don't think we don't, as a whole, when something like this hits us, you can't be in multiple spots at the correct time. It's just impossible. What I had a question was primarily, and both Clint and Brad have kind of clarified the majority of them. But as of the storm we had Saturday, which will be 2 weeks this coming Saturday, by Monday, I saw no vehicles in our area for cleaning purposes. And yes, today, we still have private road closed as of yesterday. I don't know, I haven't been down that way. So yes, we do still have roads closed. And one-lane roads that have no signs on them that they are one-way. If you're not local, you don't know it's a one-way till you're there. But I understand that that's also another hindrance as far as manpower. But the fact, I had the biggest question in my own mind was that after 3 days, couldn't see any activity as far as road cleaning or passability was increased any measure at all. And I didn't know, perhaps they were sent to a different area or something, but it appeared that the whole world had stopped in our area. And I just kind of wondered that if there's some clarification on that issue.
Well, I think the best way to put it was brought up, I believe, the last meeting, is kind of what the priorities are. Sure. And certainly our priorities are the primary roads, which for us are the major and minor collectors. And then with that, we fall back and work hard to get the bus routes. And of course, the buses share a lot of the same primary routes, but also the secondary roads, the local access roads. So by the time we were done on Monday that you're talking about, after the major event on Saturday, at that point we felt pretty confident that that if the schools were indeed open, that we were going to be able to accommodate the bus routes. And a lot of that, like what you're talking about, is us having to go back as it's continuing to snow even after the main event with the 50-mile-an-hour winds, and we're still getting a little bit more, or a lot of times it is us going back and trying to re-hit some of those primary routes and the bus routes themselves. And like I said, we did focus a lot on trying to get, as a minimum, one lane open so that people could get in and out. But certainly, yeah, it's not two-lane traffic. It's not, certainly wasn't.
I totally understand that. And this situation, whether it be a hurricane or a flood or whatever, doesn't happen every year. So it's hard to be geared up for a situation that's going to happen every 15 years or whatever. And so I don't think anyone expects that. Monetarily, it's probably no go. But I do encourage more research and availability, having a list of the contractors that would be available, or the farmers, to pitch in and go where we can go. And as far as taking off Monday, that's not in our vocabulary. And I don't think it should be in the counties either. When we have a situation as we have had, it should be, let them go sit on there or whatever in July. But it was basically a semi-emergency that hit us. We didn't know. And we have to fight it the best we can. And if we have that available information available to us, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
There's no way it's going to justify having 6 more front-end loaders and all that sitting around. It just doesn't figure out that there is a solution, and it might not be 100%, but it might get us over the hump.
Thanks, Judge. The only thing I'd like to add is that we certainly, anytime there's an event like this, we learn. We learn something from it, and we try to ensure that in the future that we apply what we learned. As they say, we learn from more from our mistakes than from our successes, and certainly we learned a lot in 2017 during the flooding event, and then we're learning a lot now, not just about ourselves, but what we can do to be better prepared in the future.
Well, Matt, I've been here for 50 years, and I've only seen it really to this degree.
Yeah.
Kevin Heinen again. Matt, so I did the calculation. You said 1,000 miles. If that's major roads, so I rounded it off to 400. You got to do them both ways. That's 800 miles. If you divide that by 12, that's only 66 miles of road each machine has to do. Okay. So something's going on. 66 miles at 25 miles an hour, you should be able to do it in 4 hours, 5 hours a day. So that's what's not adding up. Where's our road graders? What's going on? So easy arithmetic. That's why I asked you how many miles, because I had no idea, and how many units you got out there. Yeah. So.
Well, I do, and I appreciate your point there. The one thing, like I said, when we talk about our major minor collectors, and that was the number I gave you, and your when I said it's about approximately a third, that's a fairly, that's a good number. It's a good number, but one thing I do want to add to that is, with that, we also are working on the school bus routes, which are the secondary routes as well, along with that. So we are working on the primaries, but certainly also working on there. It's not an excuse. I'm not trying to make excuses. What I will tell you is we got a good group of individuals that are out there working their tails off and do care about what it is they do, and do care about getting these roads open for all the residents in Franklin County, whether that be in what we call the Riverview area, or whether you live up in the most northeasterly portion of the county. We're focused on trying to get every road open for everybody, and we care about that, and so it's certainly not from a lack of effort or caring from our staff standpoint at all. They truly are working hard, and they care about each and every one of you, and that everybody is able to get in and out of their home safely. So,
Matt, what's the status on the 3 people that slipped and fell? Are they still off duty?
I think that we got our last one back today.
Yeah, last one was released back today.
Yeah.
So you're back to full staff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further public comment?
Well, the only other thing I would like to bring up too, as far as the road lane differential, and some of the roads in Sheffield and Lanford, they couldn't lower the blade anymore anyway. They'd wear the blade out. So damn rough. Excuse me. But that takes care of that problem. You couldn't lower it if you wanted to. But it shouldn't be that problem. The roads are
Kent McMullen, Pasco. I'll just allude to a past event. I think the statute of limitations is up now. I used to own a road grader in conjunction with Douglas Fruit Company, and we had an event like this where the roads drifted in, and after 2 days of not seeing the school bus being able to get to kids that I knew lived on Glenwood Road, I went and bladed Glenwood Road, the full length of it, to where it intersects with Auburn, and then the other side of Glenwood that goes east from Ringgold Road. And of course, I didn't drive at any speed. This was my first experience of blading snow, so I was probably more in the neighborhood of 4 to 4.5 miles an hour. And I got bladed out and turnaround spots for the school bus, and I left all mailboxes and road signs standing when I was done. But I did see a county vehicle pull up to the intersection of Ringgold and Glenwood and watched me for a while, and I thought, uh-oh, I'm going to be in trouble. But I had my flashing yellow light on, and it drove on, and I continued blading. But it was just an effort to help out. So there are people with road graders that could help out considerably if that effort was made to contact those people, develop a list, contact those people to help out. It might open up roads at a faster time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
excuse me one more time. After Monday, was that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, or whatever, that their day off, or how did you expect it, or what? How come there wasn't any vehicles out there? Or still had multiple one-ways, still had multiple closures, et cetera, et cetera.
On the Saturday that the first major event, of course, this goes back to, I believe, actually February 4th was when we first got our first little bit, but then that following Saturday is when we got the bulk of the snow with the wind. I did pull our staff off approximately about 2 p.m. in the afternoon just because it was dangerous for them. The wind was blowing 50 miles an hour, and it became a dangerous situation for anybody to be on the road at that point. And then our guys were back at it the next day at 4 a.m., I believe, 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. Because we had news at about 6 a.m. the wind would be down, and so that was kind of the plan of attack. And then our folks have been working now. As far as this last weekend, as you know, Monday was a holiday for folks, but that doesn't really stop us. While the county is in maybe inclement weather and closing the county in other areas, our guys are still out there working. And it's not everybody, because when these events happen, we still have employees that that maybe had other plans, were going to be out of town or whatever. So we don't compel, we're not in a position to compel everybody and say you need to cancel everything. But the people that certainly were here and are available are working regardless of whether it's a holiday or whether it's a Sunday, or it doesn't matter. So we've had people that were working in some capacity while trying to get everything cleaned up. So there really hasn't been a day off for the Public Works Department through this whole scenario. The fact that you didn't see them, in the north part of the county could mean that they were just working, trying to, like I said, I know our road supervisor was up on top of on North Wallou trying to get that snow drift cleared because it just kept getting worse and worse. And so we've been kind of backing up, trying to get some of these huge drifts knocked out of the way in the northern part of our county. So
I just thought it was rather ironic that in that short period of time there still wasn't any additional visible activity as far as road cleaners and snowplows and whatever. We had to lesser degree, but we still had one-way traffic, the road closures, and seasonal help. I didn't know. I thought maybe you would shift somewhere, all those people somewhere else. I had no idea.
Yeah, and that's.
But other people in our legislative community of Mesa grocery store had the same question.
Caucus.
I understand.
Anything further? Any public? There's another spot at the end, so thanks, Matt. With that, we'll go into office business, payroll and warrant registers.
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $504,334.98. Note for the record, these have been reviewed, signed off by the county administrator and 2 representatives from the county auditor's office.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the total amount of $722,542.84. And note for the record that these have been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With that, approval of consent agenda 1 and 2.
And Mr. Chairman, 2 items on the consent agenda today. I don't need any independent discussion on any of these, nor do I need to separate any of them for separate vote. And Commissioner Didier, if you wish to call one out separately, this would be the time.
No, I'm good.
Okay. With that, Mr. Chairman, move for approval of the consent agenda as presented. 2 items.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That brings us on to Keith, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe I have any official business to bring before the board this morning. I will be asking for an executive session to review some potential litigation.
All right. That brings us to public comment once more. Seeing none. Keith, what do we got for executive session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to request an executive session under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph I, to discuss with legal counsel matters relating to litigation, potential litigation. Ask that the board, the clerk, myself, and the civil deputy from the prosecuting attorney's office be allowed to participate. I think we'll need only about 10 minutes and no expected action from that, after that.
Okay.
Morning, Darrell.
Thank you.
Can I get you to sign the first or second one of that so Daryl can take that? Number 2.
You got to rule the city, I need my graded too.
With the city. Yeah.
Had somebody self-helping on a county road.
I can't believe they're running buses on lanes and these roads because if they need something.
Karen, are we still recording?
We are.
Yeah, we're taking 30 minutes so Daryl can take that.
You guys did a good job.
Red ones are for Bob.
Got him?
Good, I'm good.
Vascular agreed to take all of the shoreline
Is it inappropriate to have some additional business or?
Well, the recording is on, so this is all public, but I've got no problem with you coming up and talking if you want.
Okay. Got the same problem that you and I have discussed prior. If you want to just glance over that.
Which I'm pretty sure I've got your phone number in my, well, I've got it in my phone, so I don't want to put it out there for the whole world, because that's what that will do.
Everybody else got it.
You're not hiding from nobody.
Yeah.
If you'd read that please first, and then I can
I will.
settle my little spell.
I'll read it and get to you after the meeting. We're getting ready to go in.
If I'm interrupting a meeting, I can come back.
Sure. Yeah, our executive session is scheduled to run for about 10 minutes, and if the chairman has no objection,
Or I just return in 15 minutes or 15 minutes.
yeah, it's okay with me, but it's up to the board.
When we go into executive session, I'll take this out.
Okay, well, Keith stated the executive session, 10 minutes, I understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Darrell, did you get the documents you need?
No, not yet.
Oh, that's what you're going to take out? Okay, great. All right, so we're ready, I think, for executive session, are we?
I'll do that. Thank you. Just a second.
Have a nice day.
We are out of executive session with no decisions made. Back in a regular session.
Am I up or not?
Yep.
Where do you want me at?
Where it's comfortable.
Well, I ain't got a lean back chair.
Make yourself at home.
Did you fellas have a chance to read that?
Not entirely. We just had another executive session a minute ago that
Which part did I always go?
What's your area? Meridian?
What's here? Well, gentlemen, to make a short story even shorter, I have two objections to the way I was treated. And my personal situation there, I've been here for 48, 50 years. Probably my family's paid over $1.5 million in taxes in those years. I've sprayed, maintained the county's roadways for at least 30 years at a cost to me. No problem. I'm happy to do it because I'd rather do it myself than turn the county loose on spraying my crops out. What amounts to. And anybody that you see that has land adjoining a county highway that is farming it, they're doing it for one reason: keep the county away from their spraying. They're not capable of. They don't. I could name a multiple things, but the bottom line is it doesn't get done. And I got some pictures. Let me retrieve it right quick. These are snapshots I took on Langford, where we have a farm, and on Hollingsworth, where I reside. That's how the county maintains our right-of-ways. Do we want that there? That's the reason. I chose to, not only because they damaged my property, but I chose it's a hell of a lot cheaper, I guess what I'm saying, for me to do it. And I asked Matt Mahoney to be present. I don't know where he's at now. But at any rate, going back to the little letter I just had you read, to summarize it, I saw I had a problem on Hollingsworth and Buffalo Road with some corn getting too high. So before any of this started, I took my pickup, I drove down approximately 200 feet, knocked her down, and I had a phone call from Erdman that said needed more clearance. I happened to run into Sheriff Raymond and brought him up there. And I asked him, Jim, what would you do if you were in my position? And Jim stated the fact that if he took his uniform off, he would do nothing. I mean, he maybe isn't in that Public Works Department category, admittedly so. But he said people have to realize that we are in a farming area. We got slow moving equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not I-90, which they're trying to treat it as. And at any rate, that was his response. Anyway, Erdman called me on a Friday, said that we're going to have to take some more corn down there. And I told him I couldn't be back, had some other business to do Monday, but I'd be back by Tuesday. He said that he would call me Tuesday morning to make sure I had taken care of it. Monday I got done sooner than I thought, so I called Mahoney. And he volunteered to come up and look the situation over, which he did. And I said, Matt, why don't you get down here at the intersection? I'll get up here where Erdman posted the flag. So I'll drive my pickup down there. You point me. Where do you want me to go in a row? We did that. I can't tell you, I probably got 3 or 4 rows, in addition to what I'd done with my pickup. And he says, that's sufficient, it looks good. Tuesday morning, Erdman never called me to see if we'd completed the job. Mahoney never called Erdman, Erdman never called Mahoney. So everything from this point on that the county did cost me money. The problem was already corrected, and they couldn't correct it within themselves. Lack of communication, call it what you want. I termed it to Brad efficiency. That was how I termed it. And this is a prime example. At any rate, Tuesday morning, they sent sometime I wasn't even there, they sent a road grader, mind you, a road grader, to knock the corn down. That's the mattress of 38, 40-ton corn, about that deep. Very difficult to clean up. And consequently, at the same time, they ran over my domestic water system. I'd put it in there probably 45, 50 years ago. I hauled water to my dwelling for 2 or 3 years. And I could see it was damaged. The boxes, the fiberglass boxes were damaged. What else I didn't know. But I pointed it out to them. They took pictures of it, the whole smear. And approximately, I'm going to say November, the president of the West Minnesota Water Domestic Association, we were still in the field where I'd been available to help, but I wasn't. He talked to me later, said he dug with his backhoe down and removed the boxes and put new boxes in on lids. And he was afraid to shut the master valve off because it was also hit by the road grader. And he said he also thought the meter was faulty. So to do any further work then, he chose to wait till this spring. And I said, well, how much money do you have involved in it presently? He said, roughly $1,200. And it's going to take about another $1,200 to finish it. That would encapsulate shutting all the water off to all the other people going to the east. Why we fixed this valve. There's 140 families on that system, roughly speaking. And he's presently in Arizona enjoying the sunshine right now, but as soon as he returns, we were figuring on doing it. So consequently, I got a minimum of $2,400 in there. And then I attempted last fall, or excuse me, I'm talking about the year before. No, it was last fall, to clean that mess up. I couldn't. All the equipment I have, more than I should. I couldn't find anything that, I was afraid of tearing the PTO out in the tractor, first of all, going through there with the rototiller. It's just too high, too much product. I tried disking it. I had no room to make multiple turns to get at it at different directions or whatever. So I spent a couple of days there attempting to do some good, and figured that I better try to wait till spring to when maybe the fodder would dry up a little bit to where I'd have a fighting chance in getting rid of it. I did so. I still fought another 2 days. I finally got a ripper and put it in rows to where I could burn it at the last resort. I didn't get a permit to burn it, but I burned it. But at any rate, I got 46 hours in cleaning up the damn mess they created with a road grader. I've never heard the county knocking down corn with a road grader for visibility purposes. In doing so, they not only knocked down the corn from stake to stake, they knocked down additional corn that had no visibility issues. And so I got a little upset. The bottom line is, and in conclusion, the job was done, and the lack of communication within themselves resulted in some costs that I had to incur. And the term right-of-way that they use is merely a fact to cover up when they screw up. I don't care, that's probably incorrect terminology, but that's the truth. I've been there for 50 years and watched what's going on, and we've become clandestine is what we have become, because we don't know any better. We haven't seen any better in the northern part of the county. True, down here at Coast Pasco, yeah. But going back to the issue they're talking about this morning on the road graders, going that high off the ground or whatever, hell, they have to. The roads are so that dang rough they can't get through them without their blade hitting the pavement. I mean, we use theirs to get our products to market, and they're in a hell of a shape. Not all of them, but many of them are. But at any rate, that was my case number one. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of myself or not, but I'll just mention the other case. I'm going to prelude it with when I took these instances to our Franklin County, to the district court. They told me that they could not hear them in Franklin County. I said, why? I wanted an explanation. The incident happened in Franklin County, why I can't be heard in Franklin County. No answer, got on the phone again. I was here an hour and a half with no results. I could go to Walla Walla County, to Walla Walla District Court, or to Garfield County at Dayton District. I couldn't go to Adams County, which is 20 minutes out of my back door. So, by this time I'm a little bit irate, so I just jumped in the pickup and go straight to Walla Walla. Went to the district court in Walla Walla with all my paperwork. And those two gals, I have their names, couldn't understand why it was coming from Franklin County to Walla Walla County. So I said, to clarify the issue, you call district court and get an explanation, because I couldn't get one. So she did. She got the same answer as I did. So she gave me the forms from Walla Walla Court to apply for the date of the trial. And the appropriate forms to take to the sheriff, Jim Raymond, to serve on Public Works Department. So on the way back, I gave those forms to the sheriff's department. They served the papers, and then I received the information that they had served the papers, in which I had to certify in a letter to Walla Walla County Court, which I did. And they told me that the defendant, which was Franklin County, had 30 days to respond, or they would become default. So I came in for dinner sometime later. This is about the latter part of February. And Jesus, you know, it's got to be more than 30 days. Without looking, I called the court up. Oh yeah, closer to 50 days. They hadn't responded. She said, well, I'll take it to the judge and Walla Walla. Fine, you know, I'm not an attorney. I don't know the law. So Sean filed a motion to return it to Franklin County. Now this, he asked her what? It is in my opinion. And so at that time, I was pretty upset, and I'm tired of being run around in 16 circles and not getting nothing done. And it's not basically the monetary aspect of it, but that's the only thing they understand. I'm out more money from my acres than what's dictated on those papers. Both incidents, as well, go into the case number 2 here just momentarily. The amount of $20,000 is really not covering my tail, but that's the only thing that gets any attention. It's not a pat on the back or we'll treat you better next time bullshit. It just don't happen. The next case I'm going to present to you was in in July of 15. I got a call that there was some south of Unit 236, of which I live on, that there was a visibility problem. So I got, and I could see that there was going to be. Pioneer Seed Company out of Connell came down and they topped that corn down to right above the ear, about 3 feet off the ground. John White, the manager, said that wasn't good enough, so he destroyed the whole thing. And that upset me a little. So about a month later, Fike was the county engineer at that time, came out and said, hey, there's no problem here. We already got a straight shot here with a stop sign. We'll just eliminate the curve. That's fine. I'll give you easement to have a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn or whatever you want. And then about March, Cook called me. Said, we'd like to talk to you about this. It's too expensive. Pike told me that hell, it only had to move 2 telephone poles and get rid of the corner. But at any rate, Cook and Matt Rasmussen came out. They said, how are we going to cure this problem? And so we talked it over, and the only thing we could figure out was to eliminate all the crop around the corner in between the telephone poles, probably 800 to 1,000 feet, in 30 to 40 feet, and that eliminates the problem. And Rasmussen told me, we will pay you for your efforts to rototiller or to spray or whatever that area And then in the fall, we reimbursed. Well, I did all that, but every time I tried to make communications with Franklin County down here, there was nobody's home or we're in the meeting, or I think they were still running and hiding from the Houston effect. But we were busy in the feedlot, and I never had time to pursue it, and never thought about it too much. The second year, did the same thing. In fact, I made a special trip, as I'm doing today, to Pasco to confront the Public Works Department to get an answer how come I wasn't getting paid. It wasn't any, Brad said, well, I should have had a contract. Jesus Christ. It wasn't a $50,000 deal, it was like a $2,000 or $3,000 deal. And if it had been $500,000 or something, I'd have had a contract. But the fact remains, there was myself, my wife was in the kitchen, Bob Cook was there, and Matt Rasmussen. When I called Bob Cook in the middle of July, everything was yep. And I'd like to ask Bob one question right now, a yes or no answer. At the conclusion of our first conversation, you told me, on our way back to town, I told Matt that I didn't know he had the authority to make that deal. Yes or no?
Well, neither he
Yeah, I said yes or no.
we can't make a deal by myself, so.
Yes or no?
I
Did
guess
you
if
make
you-
that statement?
No,
Well, you made it to me.
no. I couldn't, Butch. I can't answer for the board as one person.
I'm asking you a yes or no question. Did you make that statement to me?
No,
You're keeping up your personal background of a liar, because you did. 1 week and 1 day later, he made a 180-degree reversal, said we did not make a deal. There is 4 of us there, and I finally contacted Matt Rasmussen. He's over in Benton County. And I ran the same scenario back to him. Did he recall? So yeah, I recall making the deal, but he couldn't remember the exact guidelines of the deal. But yes, he remembered making a deal. You said we did not make a deal. There's 3 out of 4 of us, and actually you admitted it the first time.
Matt.
I don't know if you got dementia, Bob, but I tell you what, an elected official does not need to be sitting where you're sitting, being a liar.
Mr. Chairman, the discussion has taken an unfortunate turn, and we can either wrap it up or I'll excuse myself. Take your pick.
Yeah, it's.
I don't
know where Butch is going with this right now, but I cannot make a decision for the board. Period.
I made the decision and shook his hand. You were present.
Yeah.
He offered that.
He can't offer it.
How did I know at that time? Did you tell me he can't offer it? No. How do I know? I shook the man's hand. He says, yeah, we got a deal. What more do I need? And you tell me 2.5 years later, no, we didn't make a deal. We were only discussing it.
No.
And I asked Brad, did he recall any discussion? He said no. So somebody's not telling the truth, isn't he? It's not right. Right is right and wrong is wrong.
So Matt, getting back to that, you guys didn't talk and the road grader went out there and did all that damage? What happened there on that deal?
I'm not sure what's specific of that.
Where the road grader mowed down the corn, got into the water, domestic water supply, tore it up. That one where you met with Butch, You drove down the road, you visualized, seen him coming, said everything was okay.
I'm gonna have to defer, because this went through I provided information to the prosecuting attorney's office, and
when you and I went out there and destroyed the corn, you said that was sufficient. Is this correct or not?
no, that's a fairly accurate representation of our comments.
Okay, and then you did not tell Erdman that the problem has been resolved, and Erdman did not call me like he said he was going to see if the problem has been resolved. Is this correct?
In that case, what happened is Craig Erdman was aware that I met with you. He was aware of what I saw. What didn't happen was our road crew was directed that if the corn wasn't removed to the line that was staked, that they were to go out on Tuesday morning and get it taken care of. I'm not aware of the conversation that you had with Mr. Erdman, but what I can tell you is certainly the conversation that I had with Mr. Erdman after I met out there with you, unfortunately didn't get relayed to our road crew, but they went out and did as they were originally directed, and they removed the corn based on the line that we set.
And ran over my domestic water system.
That we run.
So basically it was a lack of communication within the department. Would you term it that way or not?
Well, certainly, yeah. I mean, we didn't pass the word down to our Connell Road crew to hold up on Tuesday. They were still operating under their original direction. That I absolutely have never debated.
I know you haven't. That's the reason I wanted you present. But after you and I.
Perhaps it would help if you could explain where the right-of-way lies and where the corn was removed and the permitting required to plant in the right-of-way that hasn't been installed.
Yeah, certainly I met out there with you, and I brought you a copy of the county's ordinance, which is a utilization of county right-of-way that requires anytime anybody wants to utilize county right-of-way or anything, they have to get a permit from the county. There wasn't a permit. I explained that to you. I said our job isn't to.
Would you come up here, please, and let me show you the reason why we don't get permits to make. Here, take a look at these. These are some of the photographs of the way the county is taking care of those right-of-ways. 2 days after that particular incident happened.
Yes.
What do you say in defense of that?
What I say in defense of that is we do everything we can to control vegetation within 6 to 10 feet of the county roadway in accordance with county ordinance.
Does it look like it's being taken care of?
Well,
they don't lie. The pictures don't lie.
No, but I'll give you many reasons why it's very difficult to do. When we go out there and spray, and then the area gets hit with water from end guns and sprinklers, it's very difficult.
No end guns on them. No end guns in conjunction with them.
It's an ongoing issue that we have.
The current practice is going out there about this time of year when they get nice big seed heads on them with a flail mower, and has been the practice. Go down there and spread those seeds off into our fields and adjoining areas, which we pay millions of dollars to. It's a counterproductive measure, which I tried to explain to you before. You reseed the weeds that are already growing there, then come along with a road grader and boil them back out of the bar pits that are already disintegrated to some extent. And when the road grader can't get through there with them, you raise the blade to get around them, that creates little copper dams. That's what roached this road out here 2 years ago, because the water had no place to go. It's not their fault they couldn't get down through there with the road grader, because the weeds weren't taken care of. You got mowers, the district has got mowers. They use theirs.
Yes. And we work with, we actually contract with the Noxious Weed Board to do our weed control. They do a good job. They go out in this area. This county has had some difficulties in the past with some overspray due to the wind, so we have to deal with whether or not it's a calm enough day. We try to get ahead of it. It's tough to be perfect when dealing.
No, I thoroughly understand that, but I've witnessed too many times when the county crew is out there with a 25-mile-an-hour wind blowing. That's the reason I signed up for a owner will maintain 30-some years ago. For this reason alone.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that most farmers that have ground adjoining the county road try to farm right up next to it to take care of the fact that the county isn't going to have an excuse to try to spray something. I mean, I don't want to be any more obnoxious than I already am. But the fact is the fact. And we've learned the hard way. And I've been out there 50 years learning. And it hasn't gotten any better. And some way you go to Adams County or Grant County, it's like going into another world. They make an attempt, not necessarily 100% pristine, but you see where they've mowed the weeds, they've sprayed. Why don't we get the same attention?
This conversation's going nowhere, so.
I'm just pointing out the fact of why this situation arose.
I have to admit, I went and got my own maintain orders too on mine, because the same thing, and we've got a lot of people up there that are not happy with the borrow pits, and I've talked to you about it, the severity of the borrow pit, and I've talked to you about getting this maintained to where the farmer can farm right up to the gravel roads. That way we don't have to worry about spraying, we don't have to worry about any of that. This is why I'm coming to you and talking to you, Matt, about this, because the problem with a lot of guys and a lot of people are not happy with the way that the right-of-ways are being maintained.
Yeah, I mean,
So, Matt, I'm not going to drag this out. If there's a specific question, obviously I'd expect you to respond, but you know, the reality is if we grade out our borrow pits to a 3-degree slope, which we've agreed to do in many areas, that doesn't work on a place like Glade or somewhere, because you're just going to direct a whole bunch of water that's got to have somewhere to go in a runoff. So as you and I have discussed, in some places borrow pits make sense, in some places they don't, and you guys need to be smart about where you do that. Second thing is the notion of farming up to into the county's right-of-way is a good cooperative program that's been around for a long time. It appears to me as probably the only non-farmer in the group. Well, I guess Bob's not a farmer, but the problem is that when the manner of vegetation control involves a crop that's high enough that it obstructs the sight line, now you create a public safety issue on the roadway. And there ought to be a process by which we go to the farmer and say, this is a problem, and because it's public safety, we don't have the luxury of waiting a week or 2 weeks. It's got to be fixed now. And if we don't do that, we put tremendous liability on the citizens of the county. My understanding is that when you get corn over a certain height, it blocks your view. And that's really the issue here. I don't have any issue with people farming in the right of way, but it appears to me that what we had here was a disconnect about how much corn needed to be removed to make it safe. And I had conversations out there on the property with Mr. Curtis. He explained to me that he's a very direct and blunt individual, and I explained to him that I am too, and we ought to get along just great. And we had a good conversation. I wasn't aware that more corn was going to come down. Frankly, I don't know who did it. I'm not saying the county didn't. I'm just saying I wasn't there. But the cooperative nature of farming in the right of way makes all kinds of sense, and I know you agree with that. It does seem like, if nothing else, we need to get folks around a table and make sure the people that are responsible for those sight lines understand what the rules are. I'm not going to venture a guess at this point as to who told who to do what with a road grader and knocking down corn or not. Again, I wasn't there, and I don't want to get into hearsay, but Mr. Curtis, I totally get your frustration. I really do. You made a reference where you said that I said you should have had a contract. I think what I said was, did you have a contract, and it would have been great if you did. It's a subtle difference, but it's
something similar.
Yeah.
The point I do recall making to you was that Brad, we're paying more and getting less, and you said, no, I know you're paying more. How are you getting less? Mm-hmm. And I summed it up with one word, and that was efficiency. Did I or did not?
No, I remember something to that effect, and I don't disagree.
This is a prime example of what I'm talking about. Just this particular case in itself.
Yeah.
It's lack of efficiency. I
Well,
mean, good God, if you don't.
I think the stuff that we agree on is that farming in the right of way is a good practice, but it's got to be done in a way that doesn't compromise public safety. And I think we're all on the same page there. Yeah. It's the manner in which the risk to public safety was dealt with is where we have a concern. And I think we need to get folks around the table and make sure that everybody on your team, Matt, knows when it's appropriate and when it's not, and who can give the green light to do that and who can't. Because step one has got to be sitting, or standing face to face with that farmer and saying, we've got an issue here, and here's the options for how we deal with it, and then together choose the option we're going to use and go do it. And it's pretty simple, really, but it appears that it didn't entirely happen in this case. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Well, like I said before, I spent probably over $1.5 million in taxes. I'm glad to do it. But when a situation is resolved and then I turn my back and it costs me money, that's not right. And that's what happened. Matt and I resolved the situation as far as the visibility. Erdman never called me like he said he was going to call me. Matt never talked to Erdman to say the problem was resolved.
Well, you notice that most of my comments were directed toward Matt.
Yeah, I'm going to pat you on the back as soon as you leave. But you see my frustration.
I do.
And I don't know how more plain I can make it, but I feel I've been wronged, and I'm not threatening anyone, but I think there should be an adjustment made to it, and rightfully so. I don't want to create a financial hazard on anyone, but I would like to get my money back from someone that's inflicted it upon me. And if you fellas decide that the Public Works Department was in there right, I'll have to swallow that or think it over anyway. If not, why, I want some settlement. And I don't think I'm unjustifiably requesting. And actually, that's minimum what I ask. I've done a lot more than that.
If you are saying that you want to submit or file or lodge a claim, I would offer that probably the two most appropriate people in the room to speak with about that would be Mr. Johnson, the county administrator, or Ms. Johnson, our representative from the prosecuting attorney's office.
Yeah, I've been that way. I sit down and try to talk to him, and Sean, he took 10 minutes to explain to me how corn grows, And, that's the most I got out of that conversation. But, right's right, wrong's wrong. I mean, where I grew up in eastern Washington, when a man shook your hand, that was the deal. And it's apparently not in Franklin County. I hate to see it. We gotta start somewhere. We've seen what has happened in Franklin County over the last few years. Let's not continue it.
Okay. Anything further, Butch?
Excuse me?
Anything more?
No, except for, you know, like I say, I want a yes or no, or I go elsewhere, or go lick my wounds, I guess.
I don't, this isn't even a legal piece of paper so that you gave us, so what do you have
Are
to?
you on the paper trail again, for Christ's sake? I'm stating the fact, and witnesses are here for the fact.
Yeah.
What more do you want?
Well, I don't know that anybody here is gonna commit to a dollar figure today with what we have seen.
Do you want me to dig up more paper?
Well,
What do you want?
make a, just like Brad said, make a request.
I've already done so, basically. I got case number 2, same as you witnessed on case number 1, with a request in it. I have it in my little satchel there. But I feel real badly that an elected official would blatantly lie. That is worse than telling by enemy. And can't
Well,
remember what he
that's
said
two
a
different
week later.
opinions.
Week and 1 day later.
Two different opinions,
Opinion, hell, there was no opinion about it.
you know, from your side.
I got 3 people that were there for witnesses. Actually, you were there too and admitted it to me prior to a week and 1 day of just turning 180 degrees. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you get your gold watch
I couldn't have made a
somewhere else,
commitment. I could not have made a commitment, Butch. I told you.
You told me on our conclusion of the first conversation we had on the phone that I told Matt on the way back to town that I didn't know if he had the authority to make that deal. That means to tell me, and I had no idea of that. Nobody told me that.
Yeah.
So I just went ahead and did the work as requested, as the deal specified.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? How come you never came to tell me? Or anybody?
Yeah.
Why?
Communication gap, I guess. I don't.
The communication gap cost me money doing your job as to the deal was presented.
So this is your written request that you
That's
say
for
was.
the one incident. I have the other one in my brochure back there.
Well, we'll send this to the prosecuting attorney and see what they say.
Ask that prosecuting attorney if that's even legal for what he did.
Yeah.
He was found in default in Walla Walla Court, filed a motion to move it back to Franklin County, and I spent an hour and a half trying to get it heard in Franklin County. Now, what kind of BS is that? I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to get a little disturbed about the procedure involved.
Correct the record on that. It was dismissed in Walla Walla for lack of jurisdiction. District Court does not have jurisdiction of things that happen in Franklin County. Only Walla Walla Superior Court would.
Why?
That's why the judge.
Why didn't they tell me that when I was here?
I don't know, but they are not authorized to give you legal advice on where to file.
This is very fine, ma'am. 2 years hence. But they could have, if that was the case, why didn't they tell me that there?
They relayed to me that they told you Walla Walla Superior Court
No,
or
they-
Columbia County Superior Court, not District Court. That was the problem. So the judge dismissed
They
it.
told
there.
me district court. That's where I went. I had the gal from the district court call district court in Franklin County, they had the conversation, same as they told me.
I'm just letting you know why it was dismissed, because it was in district court, and district court does not have jurisdiction. That's why it was dismissed in Louisville.
Why couldn't they tell me that?
I don't know, but they can't offer legal advice. All they can do is dismiss it, and I believe on the dismissal order, he wrote that Walla Walla District Court does not have jurisdiction, the Superior Court does.
Well, that sure saved me a lot of steps. Deficiency, one more time. I did as directed, followed the little rules and the guidelines and everything else, and got slapped in the face.
All right.
I'm gonna leave the other with you, Commissioners, and you can decide.
Okay.
But I am, like Brad, I'm blunt. There ain't nothing fancy about the way I present myself, but it's the truth. And I know that that's not a common denominator amongst you boys there.
Okay, leave us that paperwork. Is there anything else for the good of the board? We all got a meeting here shortly.
But I do appreciate Matt's involvement, because we were on the same page, so that's where I got in there.
Right. With that, we are adjourned.